Women's Caucus of the Open Table. I'm Candace Faye Stitzman, Chair of the Women's Caucus of the Pennsylvania Democratic State Committee. Tonight's subject is going to be Project 2025. The moderator tonight will be the Honorable Marjorie Margolis. Our esteemed panelists will be United States Representative Madeline Dean, Murray Levin, Esquire, Solicitor for the Women's Caucus and State Committeeman, State Representative Dorisha Parker, Committee Person from Philadelphia, Nina Ahmed, who is also the Chair of the Pacific Asian, I'm going to say that wrong, I know I am, Caucus.
And I'm a council member, not a committee.
Oh, a council. I'm sorry, Nina. I hope that means more bucks. Howard Mosley, Senior Advisor of State Committee, and Speaker of the House, Joanna McClinton. And then, of course, Janet Diaz from Lancaster, and she is the Chair of the Latina Caucus. We are privileged to have, as our presenter of Project 2025, Lisa Eichhorn, notable actress, producer, writer, and as I say, activist. Lisa?
Hello. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you today. I came to political awareness late. I came from Eisenhower Republicans who felt that two things should never be discussed: sex and politics. A chance meeting with candidates Clinton and Gore while filming in St. Louis finally awakened me from the parental prohibitions of my childhood. Before I begin, I want to let you know that this is a sampling of the dangers, the perils of a second Trump presidency, not just because of his mental incapacities and lack of seriousness, but more so because Project 2025 will undo democracy as we know it. That is not hyperbole. Project 2025, who's behind it? The Heritage Foundation. The Heritage Foundation, which will also be referred to as Heritage in this presentation, is the conservative think tank from the Reagan era. It was founded in 1973 to push conservative, business-friendly policies. Today, it's arguably the most powerful and influential right-wing think tank in Washington, D.C. Heritage has helped staff and set agenda for every Republican administration since Ronald Reagan. Reagan credited Heritage for his quote-unquote many successes. By the end of his first year in office, he had implemented more than 1,000 policy proposals by them. Fast forward to 2015, when Heritage leadership mocked Donald Trump's candidacy and questioned his conservative credentials, calling him a clown. But Trump pledged to consult Heritage on potential Supreme Court nominees, and when he won the White House in 2016, he delivered. According to author Michael Lewis, the Trump campaign, not expecting to win, hadn't even bothered to prepare an acceptance speech, let alone an action plan for taking over the reins of the federal government. Remember those Chris Christie binders they talked about that someone in the staff just threw in the garbage? So Heritage swooped in, playing an outsized role in staffing Trump's administration. In Trump's first year in office, he implemented 64% of their policy recommendations, more than any president since the organization's founding. His 2017 tax cuts were a policy crafted by the Heritage Foundation. In 2018, 19, and 20, the University of Pennsylvania, which produces an annual index of global think tanks, rated the Heritage Foundation the world's top think tank in terms of, quote, impact on public policy, end quote. Enter Kevin Roberts, who became president of the Heritage Foundation in October 2021. 2 years later, the Heritage Foundation published and posted online their manifesto, Project 2025. Roberts recently praised the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. During an appearance on Steve Bannon's War Room's podcast, he said, "Despite all this nonsense from the left, we're going to win. We are in the process of a second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be." At the Pennsylvania conference in Harrisburg, the Conservative Leadership Conference last April, he said, "We live in a time when the radical left want you to be discouraged. They want you to be despairing about the future of America, which they hate. More than at any other time in our lifetime, dig ever deeper. This is the year, 2024, when we take this country back." Now be sure that a radical left is any Democrat. A Marxist, a communist, vermin is any Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're a moderate Democrat or an ultra-liberal Democrat. You are part of the radical left. In Project 2025, Kevin Roberts sets out recommendations and policies for the next conservative presidency. It is a dark agenda with ideas that will inflict real harm on tens of millions of Americans. What is Project 2025? It is the newest presidential policy handbook from the Heritage Foundation, published in April 2023. It is called The Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise Series. Last January, when interviewed by the New York Times, Kevin Roberts said the task for the Heritage Foundation is, quote, institutionalizing Trumpism through Project 2025. Many believe the Heritage Foundation is actually modeling its vision of America on Orbanism. For years, Kevin Roberts and his team have met publicly and privately with Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who has deep ties to Russia. Roberts sings Orban's praises, especially regarding his new embrace of Christian nationalism. The European Union no longer considers Hungary a functioning democracy. The $22 million Heritage Plan is a 920-page America First book with policy proposals aimed at providing the next Republican president with conservative rationales and recommendations on every major issue facing our country and the apparatus needed to put those recommendations into place. Religious freedom is referenced throughout Project 2025. Faith, Christian faith, is at the center of policy recommendations undermining the constitutional separation of church and state. According to Axios, Project 2025 is, quote, the most sophisticated, expensive, pre-transition planning ever undertaken for either party, end quote. Of course, as a nonprofit, the Heritage Foundation cannot explicitly endorse Trump, but Project 2025 is most certainly written with him in mind. More than 140 people, including cabinet secretaries, White House officials, senior aides who worked for Trump, played key roles in writing it. Trump, however, denies knowing about it. But at a 2022 Heritage Foundation dinner, Trump endorsed the organization, saying it was, quote, going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do, end quote. And remember, Heritage co-sponsored the Republican National Convention last July. What are the aims of Project 2025? To increase, number one, and consolidate presidential powers. Number two, to purge the federal bureaucracy, in part by firing up to 54,000 federal workers. And number three, to install an army of Trump loyalists. Project 2025 leans into what legal scholars refer to as the unitary executive doctrine, which claims that executive power is vested solely in the president, who has broad authority to act alone. This idea rejects government composed of three separate branches with overlapping powers that serve to provide checks and balances. So, here are some goals of Project 2025. Number one, defund and overhaul the Department of Justice, making it a political arm of the White House. Number two, dismantle the FBI. Number three, abolish the departments of Education and Commerce. Number four, give complete presidential power over the FCC, making threats to revoke licenses of networks that criticize Trump real. Number five, re-examine the tradition of providing workspace for the press corps. Number six, weaken the EPA. Number seven, gut climate regulations. Number eight, repeal the Marriage Equality Act. Number nine, undo LGBTQ rights and protections from, quote, every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, and piece of legislation that exists, end quote. Number 10, outlaw pornography and register educators and public librarians who purvey it, in quotation marks, as sex offenders. This means that if a library has a book about a same-sex couple, they might be considered eligible for arrest because they are peddling pornography. As the New York Times, Washington Post, Politico, The Hill, and others describe it, Project 2025 is an all-out assault on democracy itself, on the environment, on the role of government, on the LGBTQ community, on education, on unionized federal workers, on everything that we hold dear and what we believe democracy to be. The first page of Project 2025 website declares, quote, if we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, that's all of us, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration, end quote. The plan calls for an executive branch that functions fully under the command of the president. It is built on 4 pillars. Pillar number 1, mandate for leadership, the conservative promise, which lays out the governing agenda. That's the book. Number 2, a personnel database. Project 2025 contracted Oracle, founded by billionaire GOP donor Larry Ellison, to build a secure personnel database that allows applicants from across the country, from every walk of life, to apply online. The idea is to identify pre-vetted, pro-Trump people who will compose an army of up to 54,000 loyalists in, quote, legal, judicial, defense, regulatory, and domestic policy jobs. Kevin Roberts says the personnel database is a conservative LinkedIn and, quote, the most important part of Project 2025. Pillar number 3, the Presidential Administration Academy, a, quote, online educational system that includes workshops, seminars, and mentorship programs designed to train loyalists and future MAGA bureaucrats. Every federal employee would be required to complete the training. Number 4, pillar number 4, the 180-day playbook, which includes draft executive orders and actions to be taken in the first 180 days of the first administration. According to reporting by the Washington Post, one order is to invoke the Insurrection Act on day 1 of a second Trump presidency. The military would be dispatched to quell potential and indeed anticipated demonstrations over Trump policies and planned prosecutions of Trump supporters turned critics like John Kelly and Mark Milley. Project 2025 is a unified effort to take over power at 12 noon on January 20th, 2025, and to keep it. Who's behind it? A well-financed advisory board made up of roughly 110 conservative organizations. Here are 2 that have been around for decades. ALEC, or the American Legislative Exchange Council. It was established in 1973, like Heritage. You can see the building blocks of this movement were patiently set in motion over 50 years ago. ALEC plays an enormous role in what laws are introduced and passed by state houses across the country. The lawmakers involved in ALEC, and they're all Republicans, meet regularly with corporate partners and other special interest groups to craft model legislation, as in quotes. These prepackaged bills are then introduced, often word for word by state legislators. Approximately 200 model bills become law every year. These are laws designed to benefit corporate or conservative interests and are often written with or by big oil, big pharma, and other global corporations. They're often linked to controversial social and economic issues, such as reducing environmental regulations and corporate taxes, or preventing cities from increasing their minimum wage, or blocking common sense gun laws. Florida's Stand Your Ground statute is an example of an ALEC bill. Another group behind Project 2025 is the Heartland Institute. It was founded in 1984. It's a conservative think tank best known for denying both the scientific consensus on climate change and the major health risks associated with cigarette smoking. Heartland worked with Philip Morris throughout the 1980s to discredit the science on secondhand smoke and against smoking bans. And yes, that is the Unabomber, brought to you by Heartland. So those are 2 well-established organizations partnering with Project 2025. The next group are called New Right think tanks, and these are groups driven to achieve the political goals of their wealthy patrons. Many of these New Right think tanks are headed by former Trump officials. According to the New York Times, half of Project 2025 collaborating organizations have already received dark money contributions from fundraising groups linked to conservative kingpin Leonard Leo, co-chairman of the Federalist Society, who received a controversial $1.6 billion donation in 2022. So there's plenty of money to go around. Okay, let's look at just 3 partner organizations linked to Donald Trump. Number 1, the Conservative Partnership Institute, CPI. It was founded in 2017. Mark Meadows, a former chief of staff of Trump and a key figure in the effort to overthrow the 2020 election, is a senior partner at CPI. Its stated purpose is, quote, the professional development of conservative staffers and elected officials. One immediate task these new right think tanks have set for themselves is strengthening the skills of younger party loyalists, training them to be the new party elites. According to Jonathan Swan of the New York Times and Ariba Shah of Salon, CPI has grown sixfold under Meadows' leadership, becoming, quote, the nerve center of the MAGA movement, unquote. The group works in battleground states on changing voting rules that would advantage Republican candidates and champions the careers of young MAGA loyalists. Last March, the Washington Post reported that in 1 year, CPI bought $41 million of real estate in Washington, D.C., 9 buildings located within blocks of the U.S. Capitol, and 4 commercial properties adjoining row houses on or adjacent to Pennsylvania Avenue. Grid News says that shell companies are behind the purchases. CPI refers to this string of properties as a campus it calls, quote, Patriots Row, end quote. They also own a 2,200-acre compound known as a conservative Camp David in Cambridge, Maryland, where they meet for staff training and to strategize and unite. Another organization linked to Trump is America First Legal. Established in 2021, the founder and president of America First Legal is Stephen Miller, whom you may remember as a senior advisor to Donald Trump. He was also the architect of Trump's family separation policy. Miller describes America First Legal as, quote, the long-awaited answer to the ACLU, end quote. AFL has successfully filed dozens of federal lawsuits to undo Biden administration policies that addressed racial disparity, that supported LGBTQ rights, and that expanded early voting. The Washington Post describes America First Legal as part of a constellation of groups led by Trump allies that are creating an administration in waiting. The New York Times reports that Miller has said Trump's 2025 immigration plans would expand and toughen policies carried out in his first term. Detention camps, large-scale arrests, mass deportations, including those who have been in the country for years or even decades, quote, on a scale unseen in modern American history, end quote. Mike Davis, a possible attorney general in a second Trump administration, promises, quote, a 3-week reign of terror. We're gonna put kids in cages. It's gonna be glorious, he said. Number 3, Center for Renewing America, started in 2021, led by Trump appointee Russell Vought, a Christian nationalist and former head of the OMB. Vought wrote the chapter called Executive Office of the President of the United States. It's a how-to manual for purging the civil service. Vought was behind Trump's controversial executive order known as Schedule F, which was signed into law in October 2020. Schedule F called for declassifying thousands of federal workers as, quote, political appointees, end quote, stripping them of civil service protections, thereby making them, quote, at-will employees fireable by the president. Intense pushback from federal employee groups and other stakeholders urged Congress to step in and block the executive order, which was never implemented. One of the first things President Biden did after taking office was rescind Schedule F. Reimposing it is at the top of Project 2025's to-do list. Now, a brief description of several chapters. Mandy Gunasekaran, Chief of Staff in Trump's first-term EPA, wrote the chapter on the Environmental Protection Agency. She wants the new Republican administration to do a complete overhaul of the EPA. Her policy plan would completely, quote, gut climate research and undo every federal clean energy program, end quote. Did you hear J.D. Vance during the debate say they're for clean air? I don't know. Okay, Roger Severino headed the civil rights enforcement in the Department of Health and Human Services in the Trump administration, the division that's meant to protect marginalized communities from discrimination. Instead, the social conservative and devout Catholic has rolled back health care protections for the LGBTQ community. He has a long history of trying to roll back hard-won reproductive rights, opposing gay marriage, and he is a defender of conversion therapy. Severino's chapter urges the next conservative president to, quote, maintain a biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family, which means one man, one woman, and children. That's it. And now that the Supreme Court has ended the federal right to abortion, Severino says the FDA is ethically and legally obliged to withdraw approval for mifepristone, which he calls, quote, the single greatest threat to unborn children, end quote. He writes, quote, liberal states have become sanctuaries for abortion tourism, end quote. Severino also discusses reviving the 150-year-old Comstock Act, which criminalized the circulation of obscene, lewd, or lascivious publications. He argues the law could make sending or receiving abortion medication in the mail a crime, and that those people could be arrested. Jonathan Berry, who served as chief counsel on Trump's transition team and was later named assistant secretary to the Department of Labor, wrote the chapter Department of Labor, providing perhaps the most vivid example of the merging of policy and religion. Quote, God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, end quote. He posits that by requiring businesses, stores, to pay time and a half on the Sabbath, they wouldn't be able to sustain their opening hours, thereby sending people back to church. He proposes that Congress amends the Fair Labor Standards Act to achieve this goal. The Department of Education chapter was written by Lindsay Burke, chief of Heritage's Center for Education Policy. Her chapter on the conservative plan for education is simple. Abolish the Department of Education and dispense with all current rules and regulations, especially as they apply to the LGBTQ community. She wants the implementation of universal vouchers like those being used in Arizona, especially among the wealthy, which are already leading to the closure of public schools. There'd be no strings attached vouchers available to all students, but private and religious schools would be free to, quote unquote, control their admissions, rejecting students deemed too difficult or expensive to serve. Burke also advocates for tax credit scholarships. Tax credits would allow wealthy donors to fund private schools in lieu of paying taxes. And what of the younger MAGA generation? Mentoring the next generation of Republicans is a top priority. Project 2025 reaches young conservatives through Turning Point USA, founded in 2012 by MAGA star Charlie Kirk. Believed to be the fastest growing organization of campus chapters in America, Turning Point USA identifies, educates, trains, and organizes conservative students. It boasts a presence on more than 3,500 universities, colleges, and high schools in this country. Turning Point USA is best known for its professor watch list, which purports to expose professors who, quote, discriminate against conservative students and advance leftist propaganda in the classroom, end quote. Those named to the list routinely report being victims of intimidation, harassment, sexual assault, and death threats. Politico says that the professor watch list is riddled with errors, and Slate reports that Turning Point USA admits that anyone can report a staff member without any evidence at all. You don't have to stretch your mind too far to liken it to Nazi Germans reporting their neighbors or East Germans reporting each other after World War II. Inside Higher Ed has compared the list to a new form of McCarthyism. Against this backdrop is a presidential candidate who in September last year posted this wording to President Biden on Truth Social, quote, Republicans are already thinking about what we are going to do to Biden and the communists when it's our turn, end quote. Last November, at a Veterans Day speech, Trump doubled down on his message, saying, we pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confounds of our country that lie and steal and cheat on elections. That's all of us. All of us. Last December at a town hall in Iowa, Sean Hannity decided to take the dictator question head on. He said, they want to call you a dictator. To be clear, do you in any way have any plans whatsoever, if re-elected president, to abuse power, to break the law, to use government to go after people? Trump replied, I won't be a dictator except for day one. Christian nationalists are not a majority of Americans. We can stop them. As Michelle Obama said on day 2 of the Democratic National Convention, if we're going to elect Democrats in November, we have to do something. Now, more than ever, we must elect Democrats to all down-ballot races and to all positions in county governments, in state houses, and the U.S. Congress. There is not a single race that does not require the utmost attention and effort, as Project 2025 shows us. They are literally grooming the next generation of conservative political candidates. We have relied on the naive belief that although of different parties, we all revere this experiment called democracy. That is absolutely not the case. As Project 2025 shows, that is an absolutely false assumption. The only way to stop Project 2025 and the ending of democracy as we know it is to ensure that voters know how terribly grave it is to their livelihoods, their children and grandchildren, their LGBTQ family and friends and neighbors, and their immigrant colleagues and co-workers. Remember, democracy dies in darkness. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, at this time, I would like to ask Marjorie Margolis to come up and the panel for questions and answers.
Let's give her a huge hand. I mean, that was... A+. And a huge thanks to Candy. Where are you, Candy? Where did Candace? Did she really? Oh, Candy. Candy, stop talking. We want to thank you. Thank you. Give Candy a big. That was such a, huh? You don't have to be sorry. By the way, women do that a lot. Women, at about 80% more than men, say they're sorry. Don't do that. Or perhaps this is not the right time to say this. Anyway, and then the next thing you say is marginalized. Never mind. That's not what we're here for. The thing that strikes me most about all of this is that any time it's brought up, Trump says he doesn't know anything about it. That I have no idea. I don't know what they're talking about. We really have to be aware. Anyway, I don't want to take any more time. Madeline Dean, it's you. Professor, yes. Madeline is going to start us off with essentially what will the future of women's rights be in this election, having heard what you just heard.
Well, I'll start by saying, number one, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I apologize that I can't see you on that side. Lisa, that was really a superb presentation of the dark manifesto that I call a manifesto for misogyny, among other terrible subtitles. I come at this issue obviously as a woman, but also as a mom and a grandmom. I have 3 sons, 3 daughters-in-law, 3 granddaughters, another granddaughter on her way, and I have a grandson.
I just met them.
Yes,
they're
you did.
adorable.
Yeah, she did. It is so extraordinarily dark, and obviously Project 2025 is already in play, as you know. The Dobbs decision is part of Project 2025. 1/3 of American women live in states with abortion bans. Women are dying from not receiving reproductive health care. So this is such a dark time. We have been relegated to second-class citizens, and I say that about women and girls. Can you imagine a young girl suffers rape, incest, becomes pregnant, and J.D. Vance says it's inconvenient. How inconvenient. It's just so incredibly dark how far back we've already gone under the first Trump administration, and I swear to heaven, I know everybody in this room believes we will not go back again. So what will we do? We will, number one, I'm a member of Congress. Sadly, this Congress, Democrats are in the minority. And you see how dysfunctional this Congress has been, how little we have accomplished, what political games they played with hearings to defund ATF, FBI, to impeach everybody and his mother. We're not going to do that again because we're going to get a Democratic majority in Congress and do like we did the last time around, where we passed tremendous legislation that protects women and girls. We will, it's worth it. We have to get a Democratic majority. We have 2 easy pickups, not easy, but 2 possible pickups in Pennsylvania. Am I allowed to do that? This is state committee, right? Yeah, thank you. I just slipped right into politics.
You jest, of course.
Janelle Stelzen has a very good shot, and I believe she will succeed. You're agreeing with me. She will succeed in unseating Scott Perry. That will be great. And she has great credentials, great credibility, great name recognition. She's doing the hard work. She's raising the money. Ashley Ehas is working extremely hard, and I believe she can win the Pennsylvania one, which is Brian Fitzpatrick. Now, that might surprise you because a lot of Democrats don't understand he's a faux moderate. He parades as a moderate, but it is he who twice voted against the codification of Roe following the Dobbs decision. It is time to turn him away from Congress. He is not good for women and girls. So to answer your question, Professor and friend.
Please.
What we will do is we'll get in the majority and we will codify Roe. We will make sure that contraceptive care is protected, full reproductive health care is protected for women and girls, and we'll do it right alongside growing the economy, because what happens in our economy affects women and girls gravely. So what we'll do is we will absolutely codify Roe v. Wade, the Women's Health Protection Act, as it is known. It's a Judy Chu bill, and I'm excited to turn away from the dark days of Donald Trump and this very well coordinated, underbelly, well-funded Project 2025.
Thank you. I'd just like to say that I'm totally non-offendable. You can do anything you want. If you would like to time people, you can time people. If you don't, you're just being responsible. Yeah, Candy, you make the decision. We want to know whether these answers should be timed. I think 3 minutes. Okay.
Okay, try, everybody on the dais, try and hold it to 3 minutes. And if you,
Let us know.
if you get contrary, then I'll start timing.
Okay.
And you'll hear this.
Nice.
Oh, my gosh. I would like to say first, this is totally objective, that Mary Levin is annoyingly smart. I mean, he really is. I've followed him around for a lot of years, so you have to step up to this plate. What does Project 2025 say about the independence and functioning of the Department of Justice?
Well, I'll try not to be too annoying, and thank you very much for the question, Marjorie. Before I answer, I would like to thank 3 people. Candy Stitzman, our chair, and Joanne Tostavesi. They worked behind the scenes unbelievably hard and put together this terrific panel and presentation. And the third person that I really am in awe of is Elisa Eichhorn. We heard her presentation. Think of it in a couple of ways. On one hand, she saved you a lot of time. She has given you everything that's in that 900-page
Condensed version, yes.
project,
It really was wonderful.
and you don't have to read it now, although it's worth reading. And secondly, and a little bit scary, I felt like I was kind of thrown back 40 years ago to George Orwell's 1984. It sounds just like it, and it's just as scary. Anyway, let me say a quick word on the judiciary. Lisa actually covered it. One thing you need to know is that the person who wrote the chapter on the judiciary, which is about 25 pages out of 900, is the deputy to Steve Miller. Steve Miller is famous for the separation of families at the border and also for trying to undo DACA, the Deferred Dreamers, and that's where he's coming from. And if you read the article, which is about 25 pages, you'll see it's based on a bunch of false ideas, such as that the FBI is corrupt, such as that the Biden administration has weaponized the Department of Justice. Well, who's weaponized what? Last time I looked, Senator Menendez, I think he's a Democrat. Hunter Biden, he's probably a Democrat, I don't know. This is an equal opportunity, down the center, real Justice Department that lets the chips fall where they may. It has nothing to do with being weaponized. The weaponized is what they are about to do for us. So those are a couple of ideas. Thank you, Marjorie.
And he was you did not go overtime.
I was scared. I didn't want to hear that bell.
Daisha.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
Living the dream.
Absolutely.
What is and why are we still dealing with the menstruation inequity?
I'm glad you said that. And good afternoon and good evening to everybody. I always had to give a shout out to one of the hardest working individuals who has many hats. He is a chairman of our party. He's also of our state, party. He's also my senator in my district. I've known him a very long time. That is Senator Street, who introduced me. Thank you, Senator. Who introduced me to a phenomenal woman, Candy. I love you so much, my sister. You are fabulous. Now that I did my housekeeping, let me just share with you where I'm about to go. We are sitting on Friday. I call this Flow Friday. Flow Friday as we're talking about menstruation. And it's interesting. The reason why? Because we have a lot of men in decision-making roles in government, and that we still can't, a lot of women can't get the mustard in this world of politics, of getting elected and seeking political office. And why am I sharing that with everybody? Well, guess what? If we do not, and I'll say it again, 32 days away, if we do not put a woman back in our Pennsylvania House with that gavel to keep us as the majority, you're going to keep hearing me talking about Flow Friday. Thank God for Tampon Thursday. Thank you for tampons on Tuesday, Menstruation Monday. And we should not be in this situation, but we are. But the reason why Governor Shapiro and we were able to sign into law $3 million for a first ever in Pennsylvania grant for menstrual products across the Commonwealth of it, because the damn Democrats are in the majority. Hello? That's why we were able to do that. The reason why House Bill 850 is seated in the appropriation of our Senate is because we are in the majority, and I am relentless because I, for a year and a half, walked to the Senate with a box of tampons in my hand that were $18. I slammed it on the chairwoman's desk and said, pass my damn bill, left my business card, and I did it relentlessly for a year. I know my Senate, I know. Every lobbyist in our Capitol are angry at me because I took so much money out of their pockets. I said, listen, bro, get it done or I'm coming right back at you. And that's literally what happened. Why are we still having this conversation? Because it's talking about racial injustice, we're talking about health equity, and we're talking about it does not make sense that individuals, especially women, have to miss work. Children have to miss school. Some people do not have access. They use paper towels, they use socks, and they use newspapers, what is extremely unsanitary to use, but because of the cost, because of the inequities, and sometimes they do not have the access to get to it. That is why I'm going to raise the alarm. That's why we gotta keep fighting. That's why that was the timer. That's why we gotta keep doing what we're doing, and when it comes out of the House Bill 850, and Governor Shapiro signs it, we're headed to our Congress, hello, to let them know that we still need additional help and support. Thank you.
Thank you. Nina,
Yes, I'm here.
what measures would improve electoral participation?
Well, thank you, Marjorie, and thank you, Candy, and everyone who organized this event. It is a pleasure to be here just at the precipice of electing a woman president in our country for the first time. So we're going to do it. These are such critical conversations. As someone who just got elected, I am a city council member, Candy, in Philadelphia. I just got elected in 2023, but I did run for office before in 2020 during the pandemic for Auditor General, and I actually was the Democratic nominee. Yes, it was a very difficult time, and even though I had no resources, and the reason I'm telling you this as examples of what holds us back from electoral participation, I did not have resources to hit back the Republicans who were portraying anybody who was a Philadelphia candidate as corrupt. And my calling card was accountability and transparency. So it was, ironic I was not able to hit back, even though I got over 3.1 million votes, first time a woman of color ever did that, right? So that is like a base in Pennsylvania for us to think about what impeded me. Money. Number one was money. And number two was having to not be, I didn't do that, but many people choose not to be their authentic selves. And voters spot that immediately. And the reason why people don't want to be their authentic self is if they are, then they're going to be demonized in some manner. So it is critical that we have enough of a bandwidth, enough of a stage from which to elevate women so they don't have to face these issues. But money, men don't like to, and this is my experience, I'm speaking from experience, don't like to donate to women. Now, Kamala Harris is changing that, right? She has raised more money than ever in the history of this country. So I'm hoping with her election, and the other thing she's done, she's reduced the time you need to run for a national election or any election. Oh, wow. Well, we're down to like less than 3 months, right? So like Europe, that would reduce how much money we need to run if our time frame was shortened. So, and the other thing is most women have to do some work in order to be able to run for office. So when you're juggling all of that, including for many families, they're sandwich generation, you have parents and others you take care of, and the brunt is still on the woman. So all of these things add to additional burdens than what a man faces when they run for office. So I know I only have a short time, but this is a long topic and this is the right place. We should do a whole other seminar on what are those tools and what do we need to change and who do we need to hold accountable for those changes. So once we have that woman in that office who has already reflected in her policies her life experience of having a mother who was a single mother and had to pay for childcare. So we're already looking at tax credits, we're looking at first-time homeowner money put down, we're looking at tax credits for small businesses, things that she knows and impacts. Lived experience make a huge difference in how you govern, right, and how you legislate. So I'm very excited that we should use this opportunity in every corner of this country to propel women because we have multidimensional lives, and so our legislating, our governing looks a little bit different because we've had to. So let's make that happen. Thank you.
I just participated in the AI Climate Engagement and Clinton Global Initiative last week in New York. If any of you has interest in what happened there and how AI, in fact, will affect women, especially women who have part-time jobs, et cetera, let me know because there was wonderful information shared. It's not the topic here, but let me know. Okay, we are now going to talk to you. Is that okay?
That's okay.
You're a wonderful guy. Okay, question. What do you think the rollback of federal protections under the Project 2025 could mean for LGBTQ plus couples, especially concerning marriage equality and adoption rights?
So as a gay man who has been, recently has been married,
Congrats.
we're newlyweds, and also a cancer survivor.
You're the whole package.
I definitely have been in the situation where I had to worry about the future, and my husband had to worry about the future.
Is he here?
And he's here. He's over there. During this scare, we were not married. And all that we could think about, or at least all I could think about, because the part that you can really relate to is not the death itself, but being the one left behind. Being the person left behind and being the person who might be leaving them behind, all you can think about is, are they going to be okay? That's what I can relate to. I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I can relate to that. So the protections, we actually got married because of the cancer scare that we went through last year.
Wow.
It made it all that much more important. We survived the pandemic together. Our relationship survived the pandemic together. So we knew that, if marriage was right for us. But when we realized how close the end of your life can be in a moment, we realized how important it was to be able to speak for each other in the event that one of us couldn't speak, be able to make decisions for each other, have rights to what is left if the other person is gone. Project 2025 is scary. It is absolutely scary. If you are not a cis white male, cis white female, it is absolutely frightening. And so there are a lot of impacts. We went through, at least our community went through the HIV epidemic. Now just imagine in a Project 2025 world where another disease like that comes out and it's stigmatized to one community. Think about the things that people were saying when AIDS came out. Things about the solutions that people were coming up with. Send them all to one place. Let the disease die with them. That's frightening. And I know this was supposed to be more about marriage, but this is something that if you have not read it, read it, get scared, and get active. Knock on doors, pick up the phone, talk to your neighbors. We cannot have this. We need Kamala. We need Tim Walz.
Janet. What's at stake for immigration, immigrants' rights?
Well, a lot. They are attacking Dreamers, eliminating DACA and family-based immigration. They have plans to raid schools, hospital, and religious zone, which is something that is extremely scary. Suspending due process, expanding the expedited deportation and passing legal rights, enabling the DHS to expel immigrants and enforce and show me your papers type policy on local law enforcement. And I kind of dug in a little more in depth. First of all, I'm on city council where we we usually get the certification for the welcoming city. And there was also CASA that brought the Trust Act, which we codified. And our county commissioners were very anti passing this, and we did, which for me, protecting our immigrants against abuse, trafficking, and sexual assault, especially children, is something that I will always advocate for. And we still have that problem here in the United States. I feel that Project 2025 not only can affect the immigrants, but within my family, my niece, her father has been here since 1989 or 98, since he was 16. He works 12 hours per day, 6 days a week, hidden, even though he tried through hiring an attorney, which sometimes there are good attorneys and then there are bad attorneys that take advantage of the innocent that don't know how to speak the language. The fear for me is that they would go into the school and they would take my niece, even though she was born here in America, but because the father is an immigrant, that they would send them back, and they are from Mexico.
Or separate them.
And yes, separate them. So that's a fear. I believe that we need to continue working with our legislator. I'm always proud to work with Senator Street, and also your local government officials. I think that's where it starts. And advocating, continue advocation, pushing the Trust Act, working with different organizations like CASA. That's very important, and I'm very proud to be a Latina that knows what Latinos go through with knowing 2 different languages, and at times you don't know who to speak to because of the fear. So that's what I would say. And also, vote for Kamala.
Madeleine, as Nina started us down this path, what can Democrats do to continue to lower the cost for American families?
Well, and I'm delighted for the question. And maybe I'll start by contrasting what Donald Trump would do to lower costs. And Lisa, you know this from your study of the manifesto. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have said that they would do 2 things: mass deportation of workers, and they actually added to it deportation of legal immigrants. That's this week's horror. Mass deportation of workers and high tariffs on goods. That is inflationary. That will increase the cost of everyday goods for every single American.
And Americans do not understand that at all.
They don't.
When he says we're going to increase tariffs, they think, terrific. And that's really nonsense.
It's nonsense. He acts as though it's a tax on the foreign country. It is not. It's a tax on you and me because the price of this will go up. The price of that will go up. So I'll start with the contrast. Their economic plan is a disaster. It would be so inflationary. It will so hurt American people, American workers, American businesses when you deport workers. So what should Democrats do? We should keep doing what we've done well that has brought down the cost of goods, while recognizing some things are still too high. But we have come out of COVID, a mismanaged pandemic by the previous administration, the recession that was global, the supply chain problems that were global. But what did we do in Congress when Democrats were in the majority and we had President Biden and Kamala Harris and the Senate Democrats? We passed legislation that is growing the economy. You see the jobs numbers today? September jobs, 254,000 more jobs. That's 16 million jobs since 2020. 16 million. The previous administration lost a couple 100,000 jobs. Interest rates are slowly, finally coming down. Unemployment at a record low. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Hiring is strong. Wages are stronger and beating inflation. So we're going in the right direction, but there are things, and Kamala has talked about this, tackling corporate greed. Corporate profit-taking is 800-fold, 800% of what it has been in the past. They saw these prices go up, and they kept them up artificially to take the greater margin, to take the greater profit. So we have to make sure that we get the corporate profits to a reasonable point. We all want our companies to make money, to do well, to employ good people, so people can get ahead, but not at greedflation rates. And I think my time is not up. The other thing is, what we did as Democrats when we had COVID, we expanded the child tax credit. That lifted 40% to 50% of children out of poverty. Isn't that a good thing to do? And it's also a positive economic thing to do. It raises the family income level. And what we did was we said you were entitled to it monthly. You don't have to wait 12 months and then apply for it at the end of a tax year. So this is, and we could not get the Republicans to continue it. We will put back in the expanded child tax credit, child care credits, expanded paid leave. That's the civilized thing to do. And what we did with the Inflation Reduction Act, negotiating prices on drugs, reducing insulin to $35 for seniors, $35 a month for seniors. We Democrats want to get that across the board because a vial of insulin, I think it costs $5 to produce, and they were charging up to $600. So all of those things, investing in our infrastructure. Democrats are already doing it, solving problems. Look at what the president did yesterday to stop the strike. So that would have been very harmful to our economy and to the cost of goods. Democrats are already doing it. We have been doing it. We need to continue it with Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, a Democratic Congress, and a Democratic Senate. That's all I'm saying.
And you.
I want to be there. I want to be there.
Mary, how soon after Inauguration Day would a second Trump administration deal with traditional civil service employees of the federal government? What's your guess?
Well, first of all, I want to second everything Madeline said, and if you live in her congressional district, be sure to get out and vote for her.
Right.
Don't count that against his 3 minutes.
And it's a great question, and I appreciate it, but I do want to make it clear that in her very impressive presentation, it has already been answered by Lisa Eichhorn. However, it bears repeating. So first of all, we heard and saw the slide about the 180 days. So this is going to be day one and through the first 6 months of a, hopefully we'll never see it, Trump administration. And basically, it will put the jobs of tens of thousands of civil servants at risk. Trump already tried this when he was president before, his so-called Schedule F, which changed the status of thousands and thousands of career civil servants who serve us in every department in every way, and it made them immediately liable to be fired, employees at will. Luckily, it was never really off the ground, and it was repealed by Biden. One of the problems is that Trump, as was said, didn't expect to win, and he didn't really have a plan, and he didn't have a team. This Project 2025, which has been going on for years now, putting it together, allows him to come and jump from day one into all the horrors that were set forth, whether it deals with civil servant, whether it deals with repealing all of the hard-run civil rights that have been created over 50 years, and ending lots of reproductive right elements. It's just a disaster. I can't emphasize enough how important it is not only for us to familiarize ourselves with it, but to go and make sure that the electorate understands what they are in for, what 1984 will look like in the United States. So that's all I have to say right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Darisha?
Yes, ma'am.
We're 30 days away from, it's hard to believe, we're 30 days away from the November election. What would you do to ensure that people get out to vote?
I'm glad you said, what would I do? Literally, I have been giving them the harsh realities of what happens when you don't vote. We have record numbers of educational funding. We were able to secure a $200,000 for a new playground and a school library. I was able to make, well, not just I, we were able to make sure the nation's only menstrual hub in Germantown received $250,000. We were able to transform neighborhoods, put more resources in. We're making sure that businesses are not just surviving, they're thriving and able to sustain and come out of the red and do great things. I literally have them know that I'm one of them. Take the title away. I'm no longer, I'm a block captain on my block, co-block captain. So when things are really happening, I am boots on the ground. So if there is an incident that occurs, I am your go-to person. Along with Senator Street and a whole string of people at like 5 and 6 in the morning. So literally, I just wanted everybody to know of the harsh realities when you don't vote. Listen, in the northwest section of Philadelphia, we have 2 satellite offices. So if you're making it a fun project, take your family and show them what they can do. But I also tell them that what the other side of the aisle is trying to take away from them, their rights of voting. And that was the thing that they were like tantalizing us, like, oh, mail-in ballots, oh, what's all this? Now they're like, that's all the first they're talking about on the chopping block. And I'm saying, listen, you could do it in the comforts of your home, in your PJs and your pajamas, as you're coming out the shower, put your glasses on, clean off, and you can really, don't take a drink, but I don't want you to mess it up, because I want you to vote for me. But I just want to make sure that we get it right. So I literally give people what we can have when we vote, and we do the blue wave and do it in abundance and a big thing. And sadly, individuals are sick of the scare tactics. I give them the real tactic. Listen, I don't give any credence to a 40-count misogynistic jackass. I won't do that. I can't do it. I cannot say to people enough, you cannot relate to him at all. There's nothing that he has that you have. Let's be real clear. He's not in your hood. He doesn't come in your neighborhood. He's never been here. I know your favorite snack is Cheetos, but I'm just saying, don't think of that. Don't think of him when you're eating Cheetos. You gotta vote, and this is what's going to happen if you don't vote.
And also include teenagers.
Yeah.
We've gotten a lot of young folks out
Right.
there. I mean, they're fascinated by all of this, especially with this race.
They're fascinated because of social media. So they believe that this era and this generation believe the social media as their gospel. Before they go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, they grabbing their phone. You can't have a conversation at the dinner table because they're on the phone. Like, everything is on the phone, so they believe everything, and they debate us. They call us dinosaurs that we don't know.
Troglodytes, yeah.
Right, because we don't know what's going on, and we can tell them we do know what's going on. If they watch a movie, and I challenge everybody, if you watch the movie The Social Dilemma, and it literally shows you what happens with that, I challenge everybody, and then have them come back and talk to me about what happens when they don't vote. And I encourage them, they're gonna vote. And they gotta make sure they put myself and Madeline Dean and everybody else in this room back in office so that we can change this country around. Thank you.
Nita.
Yes, Marjorie.
With the recent demonization of immigrants by the former president,
Oh, yeah.
how does that impact the choice of AAA and HPI voters?
Oh, my goodness. Listen, I'm the only immigrant on council in Philadelphia. And the press has tried to find who was the last
Are they being
immigrant to
nice
serve.
to you?
They're being very nice. And they would have to answer if they weren't. So they know that
You
too.
wouldn't take it lightly.
We come from, Philadelphia has been a sanctuary city for a very long time. This is going back to the times of abolition, William Still, Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad. We have always given sanctuary. And so this is not something unusual for Philadelphia, to understand that. But for the rest of the state and the country, this demonization has dire impact. When I called my Haitian friends to ask what is going on, with their community in Springfield, Ohio, and my friend told me that children are not going to school, they're afraid, it's people not going to church, people not going to socializing, they're just staying amongst themselves, terrified. And this group of immigrants were specifically brought to Springfield, Ohio to help the labor market. And the factories who employ them say, these are great employees. They come on time, they work hard, they pass the drug test, all of those things. And how we have allowed, and I hold the Fourth Estate responsible to a great extent, our media, responsible for allowing Donald Trump to take this lie and for their vice presidential candidate to amplify that lie on national TV with people watching. And there's no pushback from our media, which is supposed to be the hallmark of democracy. That is what we are doing. But when you have corporate media that is owned by people, the message is decided what's going to go out, right? Because this is all about the social media that you said, it's about the clicks, right? So We have children traumatized who are going to stay traumatized for the rest of their lives. They're never going to forget this. If you think about the traumatization of the AA and HPI community, Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander community, from which I come, during the COVID pandemic, there was demonization again. The China flu, the China virus. People in Philadelphia, even though I just said we're a sanctuary city, people were afraid and they were taking it out on people. People got hurt. And go even further back, after 9/11, people were getting killed. So when I used to be a deputy mayor in the city in 2016 with Jim Kenney. And I share this story because why representation matters. On the second or third day of our administration, when he was just sworn in and I was just appointed, there was a shooting of a Muslim man who shot at a police officer. And he had a press conference that night, that evening. And I stood next to him as the only Muslim cabinet member in his administration. And what he said was that we cannot allow one person, one man, to taint the entire religion. And that is how a leader needs to step up and tamp down this kind of nonsense. But all of us have to stand up. All of us, because you're all leaders in your networks to say, no, we resist this. This is not who this country is. You know, this country still is a beacon for the rest of the world. Even though we have issues, people are still dying to get here. So we must uphold these principles that make us who we are. And we're always working to a more perfect union. And we must embody that by showing that, by speaking up when you hear something, not being silent. Silence is being complicit. It really is. And so each of us have a personal responsibility every day to find something that we can push back, that this awful, evil man, who, by the way, Project 2025 is just using him. They don't care about Donald Trump. They just want to get into power, and they want to put their white nationalist plan into operation. So Donald Trump is just a ploy for them, just a means to get there. So we must use our voices to tell everybody we come in contact with that as a naturalized immigrant, as a naturalized citizen, I'm at risk because they're going to go back and their department that Steve Miller is going to run, we're all going to be at risk. People who are children of immigrants in this room, your parents will be gone. So it is not scaring, it's real. It's real because we have a roadmap. They've told us what they're going to do. So we have to, at the same time, we tell people what are the negative things. I think to Durisha's point, we have to talk about what is the positive things that already happened. 95, when it broke, 12 days it was fixed. Woo-hoo! That was Biden-Harris administration. And think about it, if that had not, it had taken more than 2 or 3 months, and just on our governor and our state senator and everybody in here, all of us put our shoulder to the wheel and got it done. But remember, that would have had implications for the entire nation because that's such a thoroughfare. And if we talk about supply chain, that would have been disrupted. That would have been disrupted. Somebody asked me, give me an example of what they've done. I said 95. And it clicked in their head, right? So have some talking points at your fingertips. Get them ready. Get them ready, practice them. And let them roll off your tongue because we have only 30 days left to talk to everybody who's an idiot if they haven't made their minds up. So thank you on that.
Can I make a quick footnote to Nina's presentation on the Trump-Vance lies about Springfield, Ohio? Number one, even the Republican governor DeWine, in an op-ed page in the Times, said that's an outright falsehood, it's a lie.
And repeated it over and over again. Every time he's interviewed, the same thing.
And it is of interest that 10 of Vance's law school classmates from Yale have started a foundation to support the Haitians, and they've raised $100,000, and I think that was a good move. So.
I want to interject here, if you don't mind. I teach a class at the University of Pennsylvania with David Eisenhower, and we take the class to both conventions. It's really extraordinary. We've been doing it for a long time, and he obviously does the R, I do the D. But in talking to the kids who came back from the Republican convention, they were stunned by what they heard from the people whom they were sitting next to. One very lovely, fairly shy young woman was asked by the woman sitting next to her, essentially, are you, and she went down all of this stuff, and it was so culty, and she didn't know what to do. She said, I'm a student, and I wanted to get both sides of this, and I'm limited, and then the woman just wouldn't talk to her anymore. She said she could not believe that she was not full on Trump, and that's what we have to understand. We have to understand the kind of feelings, the deep, I don't even know what to call it, the stuff that just doesn't make any sense, the cultness of it. Yeah, and so we've got to get to the young folks and talk to them about it and be reasonable, not not filled with any kind of hate or anger, and that's very challenging. And after going through this class with the course, it's a real, now, it's Penn, so most of the kids are Democrats, but it's very important to get to that generation. Okay. Howard, how can LGBTQ plus allies and organizations mobilize to protect civil rights if Project 2025 threatens the progress that's been made in the last decade? And to that I say, because thank goodness we've made this progress. Thank goodness we can talk about it with our kids and our grandchildren, et cetera, but still there's this wall that's been created.
Absolutely. I mean, and what we have to do is we have to talk about this now. We have to have action now. People can vote right now. There's no need to wait. So if you find somebody who's going to vote, and they're going to vote this stuff down, and they're going to vote for Kamala, and they're going to vote for Tim Walz, get in the car and drive them. Drive them to the voter registration office. They can vote the same day. There's no need to wait. It is Election Day. It's been Election Day for a couple of days now. So that's our first. That's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing is they're trying to send us back to the 50s. They really are. And the 50s were great for some people. They were not for a lot of people.
Maybe the 1850s.
Absolutely. So we're going to have to really get together and educate our youth. We're going to have to really get together and mobilize. We're going to have to use the social media that we have to get the message out, and we have to fight disinformation. I also just want to say about Project 2025, because we don't say it enough, this is absolutely anti-American. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's not patriotic, it's anti-patriotic, it's anti-American, and it takes our country in the direction that's the opposite of the American dream. And that's the kind of rhetoric that we need to talk. Mm-hmm. And it's not rhetoric, it's the truth. We have to remind people that even the people on the other side that we don't really like what they're saying, at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And this should be about uniting the country, not under something like Project 2025, but under the dream that we all wake up and go to work for, and that we fight for, and that we hope to someday have a family, and that we hope to someday have kids, adopt kids, and not have the government come back and say, that's not your adopted kid anymore. We did this whole Project 2025 thing. That's not your kid. These are the realities that we're looking at, and we have to be mobilized now, and we have to stay mobilized. We can't forget how great some of the groups that we had in the 50s were. We have to, whether it's an HBCU or some other type of group, We have to strengthen those groups. We have to get involved in those groups, and we have to talk to our neighbors, and we have to not let anything be misinformation. We can't let anything go.
Thank you. Janet, what are the most troubling proposals which are included in this immigration plan?
I think one of the most scariest one is the suspension completely of the legal immigration, the uses of the application, like the backlog that triggers suspension. There are many families that have been waiting for 2 or 3 years, maybe even longer. Now, as well, they're targeting limited temporary work visas. They want to, stop updates of eligible countries from what they say H2A and H2B visas, which would impact the key industries of our agriculture and construction. And as you know, we have a lot of infrastructure that Biden has put forward that we're working on. Agriculture especially. We depend on our immigrants that work in farmers, especially in Pennsylvania. There are many migrants that work in and around the Amish country. Driver's license sharing. The force the state to share driver's license and taxpayers' information with federal authorities and risks of losing it. And housing restrictions. Bar U.S. citizens from federal housing subsidized if they live with a non-citizen or a non-legal resident. That one, I can give you a particular example. I have a young lady who worked in one of my campaigns, and one day she told me that she was very scared because 2 do not have, they're basically undocumented. That would be her mother and sister. Her brother is a citizen. But the other 2, herself and her other sister, were DACA. And they were limited on the amount of resources to pay their rent. And they didn't know what to do. I'm not a person that uses my power as city council, but this time I did. I went ahead and was able, working with the hospital, I work in neurology. I got her in and I told her, I know this is just cleaning and maintenance in the hospital, but this is going to give you and open the door for you. I said, just work there for 1 year, and within a year, you'll be able to move within the hospital and go ahead and get educated. Just recently, this past year, she graduated as a nurse.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Now, with her hard work, imagine her having to go with her family to Mexico, where they have no home. They have nowhere to go. They have no resources there. So that would be something that we need to educate our workers. Those that have a working visa, find out, work with the employers and say, hey, you have immigrants working for you. Do you know whether they're documented? Do you know if their visa's expired? Because sometimes they're just not educated with the policies. I'm sorry to say, but America has some policies that sometimes throw me off, and I have to read 2 or 3 times and say, okay, let me see. Let me read between the lines in order to figure this one out. But these are serious things that are occurring, and this is how Project 2025, how they're going to execute. And when you think about it, these measures would undermine the national prosperity, security, and the workforce. And we need those workers. There are some Americans that don't want to work the fields. They don't want to pick tomatoes and they're so humble to do it. So those are things that we need to do. Educate the employers, educate those that that are immigrants, find out and help them and tell them that not to fear, you're there to help them, because sometimes when you see those that are from a different country that don't look like you, they prefer not to talk to you. And I understand the process of the application of immigration because I married someone from a different country. And I'm going to tell you, it is not easy. Luckily, I was able to do the process of application myself, but I can imagine those that don't have the education. So let's move forward. Let's get Kamala out there to do the job for us so we can get these people.
Candy, I know. Mama? I also want to say, and Janet,
That's okay.
I was a journalist for many years. Think of what you've just said in terms of a story. Get to a reporter whom you think is warm and fuzzy with regard to this kind of issue, and that's where it starts. You have to get, as you well know, you have to get people involved in the story. That's where you start. It's fabulous. Do we have time for questions? Madeline wants to say something, but do we have time for questions?
Jackie was going to say a prayer because the PCN will cut us off.
Oh, okay. And then we'll go back to...
And we can talk when they're done.
I just want to acknowledge that Jason Salas, Montgomery County Democratic Committee Chairman, is here. And I wanted to say thank you to Marjorie Margolis. Didn't she do a fabulous job? She did a fabulous job as a member of Congress. She is a mentor and a friend to me. We were lucky to have her serve in Congress. So thank you for tonight.
Thanks.
I keep seconding the motions that are made by Madeline, and I'm doing it again.
What she said.
Margie, this is Reverend
Please. How lucky we are.
Oh, how terrific.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm the Reverend Jacqueline Smith Bennett. And again, I sing the praises of everyone who's been applauded already. What a hard-hitting panel this was this evening. I think we should all give them a round of applause again. I've been asked to bring a couple of remarks, and I'll start by saying, to dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chase from above, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is our quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And we know if we'll only be true to this glorious quest, that our hearts will be peaceful and calm when we're laid to our rest. And the world will be better for this, that one scorned and covered with scars still strove with that last ounce of courage to reach the unreachable star. I pray that these immortal words from the song, The Quest, will inspire in us to stay encouraged in the days ahead leading to the election of the first female president of the United States. I pray that we hold fast to that electric feeling we had and the joy and optimism we felt on the night in which she was nominated. I pray that we remember the insightful wisdom gleaned and offered by the young poet and writer Amanda Gorman when she said in her closing prayer at the DNC convention, "We are aware that perhaps the American dream is not a dream at all, but instead a dare to dream together." We pray a prayer now of gratitude for those who organized this open table and for these fearless panelists who came to ignite in us once again the spirit that we know as Democrats. We've heard it again, the call to pursue freedom and justice for all. May the God of each and every of our understandings allow us to depart from this session, keeping with us the vision of our true North Star. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
I want to thank everybody who stayed, and Lisa, it was beautiful. Thank you so much. And Marjorie, you've always, anytime I've ever asked you to do anything, you've always been right here for me. And you don't know what that means to me.
Such a good job. Thank her.
No.
She was wonderful.
No. And same to you, Madeline. Every time I've asked any of you, you've all came up and you've been right here, and you don't know what that means to me. It isn't my leadership, it's my membership. And when you come forward, it's a blessing. Thank you.
Amen.